Hi Abby. So as we discussed, this and the next video will be the instructional videos for Celestial Sphere Qigong. As we also discussed, this form was compiled and created for the purposes of providing a self-contained form that engages with and addresses comprehensively all of the principal geometrical formats and energy signatures of the subtle body and the occult anatomy. That is the whole energy system, centers and meridians of the body. It's really a whole being practice. And it's self-contained also in the sense that it's both simple and profound. It's simple in the sense that none of the postures or positions or movements in the form are of such a nature that they require any special competency, I guess you could say. But at the same time, it's profound in the sense that it is, as I really just described, it's a full spectrum approach. There is no section or segment of the energy system that is not addressed and engaged with in this single form. So in that sense, it's also designed for anyone from somebody who's never practiced Qigong before all the way up to advanced practitioners. And the form as it is practiced in exactly the same way is just as valuable no matter where someone finds themselves on the hierarchy of practitioners. And that was also its purpose. Having said that, I want to make clear to qualify that statement that in no way whatsoever is it meant to be a substitute for advancement in practice. But what I wanted to do is integrate the principles of both simplicity and profundity. I wanted to give an opportunity for, at least if, talking about the beginner, an opportunity to engage with the entirety of the subtle energy system and occult anatomy, so that they could benefit as much as possible from a full-scale cultivation practice. But at the same time, for the advanced practitioner, these are all the same geometrical principles and energy signatures all throughout that serve as rudimentary structures. No matter where one is on the mountain, the base of the mountain is still relevant as its fundament, so to speak. So innate of that, the name of it, Celestial Sphere Qigong, really reflects this. Celestial in the sense of being totalizing, sort of addressing an entire universe, leaving no part unengaged with, if you will. And also referring to the fact that everything within manifestation and formation derives from a source which includes everything that ultimately winds up blossoming into existence, and also operates as the omega point toward which all of those things coalesce into one, whether through practice, through life, or on a cosmic scale, of course. And sphere has a very it's a very practical principle, and you'll see that in the form itself. You'll see how we are constantly referring back to the spherical format. But the reason for it really is because the sphere is both the most simple form, really. It's a form that has, I would say, singularly potent potential in terms of its universal application to all forms of manifestation in existence. But at the same time, it's the most comprehensive or sophisticated geometrical form in that it integrates all others within it. So, so with all of that, I just want to make a couple of technical points as a preamble to this, that because it's self-contained, one of the ways in which that is relevant is that the way that it is practiced stays exactly the same regardless of where one is with the practice or with practice in general. So for instance, if someone is just beginning in practice, or if they're highly advanced, or if someone has just started practicing this form today, or if they've been doing it for 20 years, the form stays exactly the same. It never changes. And to get more particular, each static position is held for a certain number of breath cycles. If you recall, I think it was from the first video really, I had tied together the static positions with the number of breath cycles that they are held for. So it's also used as kind of a metric of timekeeping, if you will. So an inhale and exhale is 1, an inhale and exhale 2. Each inhale, exhale together as a set is 1, a value of 1. So we also use that as a way of measuring the amount of time that we hold these static positions. Now, unlike, however, because this is a self-contained form, unlike in Embrace the Tree, for instance, where I had mentioned in that video, that as a practitioner goes on, they can add breath cycles, add time, the amount of time, the amount of breath cycles that they're holding that form as a way of being reflective of a desire, an intention to deepen one's meditative absorption and energy cultivation with that form. That is not true in this form. All of the static positions, the breath cycles that they are held for, which is usually 10, but there are some exceptions, and I'll go through all that, never changes, no matter how long someone practices the form for. Likewise, with the dynamic positions, the movements, in other words, the repetitions of those movements stay exactly the same. So for instance, in the form that we were doing, turning the cloud, I had mentioned in that video that likewise with the static positions, as somebody goes on with that practice and gets more familiar with it and moves forward as a practitioner, they can increase the number of repetitions they do that form for as a way of deepening, likewise, the opportunity for meditative absorption and energy cultivation. Again, that is not true in this form. In this form, all of the repetitions for the dynamic positions or the movements stay exactly the same. They never change. So, and usually there are 8 repetitions per movement. There's also some exceptions there, which I will go through as we begin. Also, I want to note that given that these are instructional videos, the way that I'm going to do this is, this form, it's very important to understand that this form is a symphony unto itself in the sense that it's never meant to be broken up. It's always meant to be practiced from beginning to end completely, with no interruptions. Obviously, there are emergencies and things like that that a person can't help. But barring that, it's really important never to practice this form unless it's going to be done from beginning to end without interruptions or breakages, as it is. However, given that these are instructional videos, there's going to be pauses and breakages and explanations and sort of tidbits that I want to share to kind of help you along, maybe to understand some of the principles behind it. I'm going to try to keep the talking, efficient. But because of that, even though the form as it will be sequenced is how it actually is in the practice, it won't be exactly as it is when it's practiced because it's an instructional video. So because of that, after these, I think it's going to be 2 videos that this will take. After that, as I had also discussed, I'm going to make you a 3rd video, which will be just a display video. It will just be me doing the form exactly as it is from beginning to end. So you can have that as a reference for the form exactly how it's supposed to be. Also, I want to describe the structure of how I'm going to do this instructionally in order to be not just most efficient, but for it to be most effective. So what I'm going to do with the form is I'm going to, for the purposes of instruction, break it up into sections. The sections will all be in order as it's practiced in the form, but I'm breaking it up into sections, and what I'm going to do is I'll display each section of postures so that you can have a basic familiarity with it, so you kind of get an idea of like, this is where it's going. Then after that, I will then practice that section more or less as it is in the form. Then move on to the next section, display the postures, then practice it more or less as it is, and go on like that way until the end. I will also, because of that, I should also address this. Where the inhales and exhales are is important. And, but being that this is an instructional video and I'm going to be talking, which wouldn't be done if it's normally being practiced, I will have to kind of describe things. I'll have to describe how many breath holds the static positions are held for. I'll have to describe the number of repetitions the movements are done for, and I will have to describe where the inhales and exhales are. So if you notice any deviations, including in how long the static positions are held or how many repetitions there are, please note that I will make certain to verbally explain how it's actually meant to be done, just to make sure that that's reinforced so that there's no confusion. Okay? So with all that as a preamble, I know that was kind of a lot of information, but I just want to make sure that things are as clear as possible before we begin. I will begin. And so what we're going to do here is, just as in the last video, our stance is changing. We're no longer going to be standing shoulder width apart here, because we're going into kind of an intermediate area of energy cultivation. And so, at least intermediate or advanced, you can think of it that way. The point is that we are concentrating our stance, concentrating our root as a way of sort of further focusing the energy cultivation signatures of what we're doing. So instead of our feet being shoulder width apart in this form, it's going to be neck width apart. So it's more like 4 to 6 inches apart, with the feet still parallel, more or less parallel. Okay? So we're going to stand with our feet roughly neck width apart, and then let me just move over a little bit, center myself. Okay? And our old familiar neutral position we're going to start with, which is the thumb of the right hand inside the palm of the left hand, and the hands just lightly wrapped together and resting on the dantian. This is effectively the one time the hands are going to touch the body in a Qigong form. So we want to hold this form for roughly 10 breath cycles, just to center ourselves. And when we're done with the 10 breath cycles, we are going to, on the inhale, expand, open our hands along the level of the dantian, the third chakra. So what we're doing is here, we're not just holding the centers, we're not just shaping the centers, we're expanding them along the meridians of the body, expanding on the inhale, then lowering the hands down to our sides this way, as if we're sort of like spreading seeds on the exhale. Just move over just a little bit more so I'm centered. So again, from neutral position, expand, and spreading at the root on the exhale, and then on the inhale, we're gathering the energy at the ground, and then up and expanding along the dantian again, and then bringing the hands down along the lateral sections of the groin and opening the palms right about where the legs join with the groin, or the inner thigh or hip. And then on the inhale, we are going to raise the hands, elevate the hands together, ascending. So ascending along what's called the microcosmic orbit. This orbit of energy that is the microcosm of the macrocosmic orbits that essentially are the fundamental energy structure, the spins of the energy dynamics that govern the universe, that are reflective in us as the microcosm. So we are going to, from here, on the inhale, raise our hands along the microcosmic orbit, bring them in and then to the level of the eye, the sixth chakra, and then descend the hands down on the exhale. And spreading at the root again, bringing the hands back in, ascending in the reverse fashion, and then bringing the hands descending along the microcosmic orbit. Again, turning the palms upward into the eye, downward, spreading at the root, bringing the hands into the dantian, ascending up the central channel, and turning the palms upward and descending. Palms in, and then turning on the inhale, upward, downward along the central channel, spreading at the root, bringing the hands in, ascending up the central channel, inhaling, exhaling as we go down. Okay, in that movement we do 8 times, 8 repetitions for this, for that whole movement, the ascending and the descending. So it's sort of like a full cycle. So again, from here, upward along the microcosmic orbit, in to the eye, downward, spreading at the root, back to the dantian, up now, exhaling, and that would be one movement. And then turning the palms upward as we inhale, downward, spreading at the root, bringing the hands back in, ascending up the central channel, outward, and down as we exhale. Okay, so we do that eight times. And I'm going to do it one more time and then transition into the next movement, which is static posture. So upward along the microcosmic orbit, down the central channel, spreading at the root, up the central channel as we inhale, out, and descending along the microcosmic orbit as we exhale. And then on the 8th, when we're done with the 8, we bring the hands upward along the central channel and spread the energy along the diaphragm. Spread the center along the diaphragm. That's the 4th chakra, okay? Spreading the energy center, and then bringing the hands together and outward as we exhale. Now, you'll recognize this form. This looks like Embrace the Tree. But instead of it being at the 5th chakra around the thymus up here, it's here right along the line of the diaphragm, so the 4th chakra. Okay? And we hold the sphere here at the 4th chakra for 10 breath cycles. Okay? And when we're done with the 10 breath cycles, we exhale as we sort of slowly descend, dissolve the form to the dantian, and then up the central channel. This is the next movement. Up the central channel as we inhale, and then opening a flower at the crown, as if we're opening a flower. So we inhale, and then exhale, just reversing the motion down the central channel and spreading at the root. And we do this 8 times as well, 8 repetitions. Inhale as we go up, opening the flower at the crown, with the palms up, and down the central channel, spreading at the root. Inhale as we go up, opening the flower at the crown, and then descending the same way as we exhale, spreading at the root again. Inhaling as we go up the central channel, opening the flower at the crown, and exhaling as we descend along the central channel, spreading at the root. And that's for 8 repetitions. When we're done with the 8 repetitions and we're done spreading at the root, we inhale as we spread, expand the dantian, then bring the hands together into the Zen mudra. Now, mudra is a word that means form generally. It refers to, and really technically any form of the body, which is designed to represent a particular energy signature or set of energy signatures, and which is designed to sort of attune somebody to that cultivation. This I usually call the Zen mudra because it's most often seen in that tradition. It's the mudra of contemplation, and basically, we may have covered this before, but it's so that you want the alignment with the index fingers, the knuckles, the middle knuckles sort of aligned, and the hands one on top of the other, and the thumbs lightly touching each other, almost as if you're holding a small egg between the the palms, the fingers, and the thumbs. Okay, and we would hold this mudra for 10 breath cycles. Okay, and that's the first section. Now let's go through that again. I'm going to go through it again more or less with less explanation, just so you can see more closely what it looks like and get some reinforcement. Okay, so again, we're going to start in our neutral position. We are going to hold this for 10 breath cycles. Again, I just want to remind you, for the sake of efficiency, I may not be holding the static positions for exactly 10 breath cycles or doing exactly the number of repetitions that I say in the instructional videos, just for efficiency's sake. So we're going to hold this position for 10 breath cycles. Then on the inhale, expanding the dantian. On the exhale, spreading like you're spreading seeds at the root, at the ground. Then on the inhale, gathering, sort of bringing the hands round about in front of you and back to the dantian, spreading again on the inhale, and bringing the hands down, palms forward along the leg and groin flexure. And then on the inhale, up along the microcosmic orbit, in, exhale down, spreading at the root, bring the hands back. And as the exhale, there you go. And then the inhale, bring the hands in, down the central channel, spreading at the root, and reversing, outward, and descending. Up, descending, spreading at the root, sending the central channel outward at the eye, and now descending as you exhale, bringing the hands into the dantian, and turning the hands, ascending. And down. Ascending. And again, this is done for 8 repetitions. One more time. Can't remember if this is 8 or not, but it's done for 8 repetitions. Out and downward. And now that we're done, we're going to instead ascend along the central channel as we inhale, expanding at the diaphragm, and then bringing the hands together on the exhale and outward to hold the sphere at the 4th chakra. We're going to hold this for 10 breath cycles. Once you're done with the 10 breath cycles, on the exhale, you're going to slowly descend and dissolve this form downward. And then on the inhale, we're going to open the flower at the crown, inhale, up the central channel, open the palms up, and descend in the same direction as you exhale, spreading at the root. Descending along the central channel, opening the flower and closing it and spreading at the root. Bringing the hands in, ascending, and descending. And we are going to do this for 8 repetitions as well. I think this last one will be 8. Okay, and then spreading at the root, and from here, once it's the 8, we're going to come back to the dantian on the inhale, expanding the dantian and into the Zen mudra. So, and we're going to hold this for 10 breath cycles. So that's the first section. And we're going to go immediately into the second section, keeping the posture on the bottom. The legs and the feet, they always stay in the same position. So from here, after we're done holding the Zen Mudra for the 10 breath cycles, what we're going to do is on the inhale, we're going to spread dantian, lower the hands once again to the leg flexors, the hip flexors, the inner hip flexors here. And then on the inhale, we're going to raise the hands again as we did before, but we are going to hold them here at about the level of the clavicle, okay, together. And we're going to hold this position for 5 breath cycles, okay? So lifting, hold for 5 breath cycles, okay? And then when you're done with the 5 breath cycles, you lightly turn the palms, descending, and then on the inhale, going up the central channel, spreading the heart center, and then turning the palms and bringing the elbows in so that the palms are forward facing. And then on the exhale, pushing the sphere outward. And you're going to hold this for 5 breath cycles as well. And once you're done with the 5 breath cycles, you are going to likewise descend, slowly dissolve the form down to the dantian. On the inhale, again, bring the hands up to the heart center, expanding the heart center, and this time bringing the hands together and going into embrace the tree. And notice this time, we are holding it at the 5th chakra, the thymus, as we did in the first video that I shared. This is actually embrace the tree. And we're going to hold this for 10 breath cycles.